listening to The Local Voice on Orion Neighborhood Television, where our mission is to empower community members like you to create, communicate, and connect through television, radio, and video production. And with that, welcome in to Views from the Sideline, episode number 7. Welcome in, Joe. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good.
We're back in the saddle, talking some hoops here in this great state of Michigan. On today's show, we're going to talk about MSU upsetting Purdue, Oakland beating another rival, Michigan keeping their hot hand in a rout of Wisconsin, some NBA trade deadline recap, and then me and Joe, we go out to LA, make our predictions for All-Star Weekend. Let's get into it. Joey, I'm gonna let you handle this one because on our last show, hot take segment, you stated MSU was going to beat Purdue. And I got to give it to you, man. I hate to do it, but you called that thing.
Whew. I can't believe I did either. I didn't really believe in myself, but I got it. So that was super exciting.
Hey, you don't tell the people you didn't believe in yourself. You say, I knew it all along.
I'm a realist, Chris. I'm going to be honest with everybody. But no, I had a weird feeling that they could win that game. But when we saw Ohio State upset Purdue earlier in the week, I remember talking to you. It made me really nervous because then I thought Purdue was going to come out with a vengeance against Michigan State, and it was going to blow all the chances for me to get this upset. But we got it. Miles Bridges with the game-winning 3 from very deep.
It was like an NBA 3.
It would have been a very it would have been bad if he missed, honestly. It's one of those It's one of those plays where if you make it, you're praised. As soon as he fires it, everybody's like, "Oh no, what is he doing? Why did you shoot that shot?" And it goes in, you're like, "Oh yeah, exactly. Good shot."
I mean, they say it all the time. Basketball is a make or miss game. I mean, if you make it, everybody's rooting for you. You miss it, what are you doing?
Yeah, and that's exactly what Tom Izzo wanted to do, though. He wanted to put the ball in Miles Bridges' hands, give him the green light to do what he wanted. That's the look that I guess he wanted, and he got it. This was a huge, huge win for Michigan State because after this game, the rest of their schedule is a breeze until we get to the tournament play. The biggest takeaway, I think, was Schilling's defense on Haas late in the game.
That was huge.
Obviously, Haas still got his. He's going to. He's a big 7-footer, skilled. But he gave MSU big minutes when Jaren Jackson was really, really, really struggling. One of his worst games of the season, in my opinion. And Nick Ward had a little bit of foul trouble early. So Schilling came in, gave a great effort, and got some very clutch stops. Even Haas was starting to get going late, and I thought he was going to be the one to bring them back. And just before the end of the game, Haas gets the same little mini hook right under the basket that he had maybe a couple plays ago. Same thing. He made it that time, and this time Schilling stepped up in a key moment and stopped it, and that kind of led to Michigan State.
And I think you bring up a great point. I mean, Nick Ward, Jaren Jackson really couldn't get a control of Haas the whole game, and then Schilling really set the tone for the rest of the ball game. He played great defense, set the tone on that side of the court for MSU, and they really took it away.
Yeah, the only thing I was a little bit confused about was why Nick Ward didn't get back into the game. He did have foul trouble early in the first half, but by the second half, he barely played towards the end of the game.
I mean, maybe it's because Izzo saw what Schilling was doing and just wanted to ride it out and see what he could do.
Yeah, but he was keeping Jackson in. And I know, like,
Jackson's more of an offensive
I know
threat.
It's one of those guys that's like, okay, he's a young guy, he's got a lot of talent, a lot of skill that maybe you want to give him some confidence still. But Nick Ward is that guy that you can go to, and I think that Jackson was struggling so much that maybe that's the time you sit him down and bring in Nick Ward.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I mean, either way, it worked out. I mean, the biggest thing too, I think, for this game, it's kind of an unsung hero is Cassius Winston as well.
I mean, I wouldn't say unsung. I mean, 10 points, 10 assists.
Well, people aren't talking about him because Miles Bridges and Schilling's defense. But he had 10 points in this game, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, and the biggest takeaway, only 3 turnovers, which is huge for Cassius.
Yeah, Cassius.
It's been his problem lately. And the biggest thing too, I guess, would be that State had 6 team turnovers total.
Yeah, those are my keys to the game.
That's insane for a team that really struggles to handle the ball. To get only 6 turnovers in this game,
and they've struggled all year.
Yeah,
all year long.
The crazy thing is that Purdue only had 3 turnovers as a team. That's how good they are. Is that they can just not throw away the ball. They don't give the opponent very many chances.
Yeah.
So it forces the opponent to stop them. because they're not going to make any mistakes themselves. Vincent Edwards, big stop. He only had 8 points in this game. He was huge in the last game.
He's been huge in almost every game.
Yep. And Michigan State held Purdue to 40% from the field, 32% from the three. That's also really hard because they have such good ball movement and so many different weapons on that team. So this was just a big overall win for Michigan State in general. Defense, offense, it all looked good. This is a good thing looking forward to the tournament.
Definitely. And if I'm looking at this game and I'm breaking it down, the two keys that I take away from it was, like you said, MSU with only 6 turnovers when we've brought it up on the show. That's their biggest spot for improvement. They showed it in a big-time stage against Purdue. They only had 6 turnovers. That's one key to the game. The second one was holding Edwards to 8 points. I mean, he's been a killer all season long. Him and Haas working the pick and roll. Whenever Isaac Haas sets a screen for Vincent Edwards, I mean, he's so big, he gets Edwards a clean look every single time at the top of the key. And Edwards is a dynamite 3-point shooter.
Yeah, and they stopped both Vincent Edwards and Carson Edwards.
They did a lot
they both struggled in this game.
Yeah, they did MSU did a lot of trapping on the pick and roll, which really helped contain Edwards and stop that Haas pick and roll, which I thought was really good coaching by Izzo coming in, because those were going to be the guys that were going to beat you if they were going to beat you.
Right. Yep. Definitely a big win. Coming up to tournament play pretty soon. Like I said, Michigan State should be able to breeze through the rest of their schedule. I mean, you don't want to take it for granted, of course, but this was a big win to take you to the end of the season, the regular season.
Now, I want to pose a question to you here, Joe. I mean, MSU showed out. They got a big win against Purdue. And then a top team like Virginia kind of loses to an unranked Virginia, not kind of, does lose to a Virginia Tech team unranked. How is MSU not number one?
Yeah, this was a pretty big controversy, especially around this area, because everybody felt like Michigan State should be number one. They just beat Purdue, who is definitely one of the best teams in the country.
A lot of people saying best team in the country.
Yeah, I think they're still the best team in the country, or that when tournament play comes around, they will be. But a lot of people are confused at why Michigan State was not number one. And even myself included, me and my dad were kind of sitting around and talking about it. And he said, was talking about, do you think MSU should be number one? And I was like, well, Virginia was ahead of them beforehand, so I'm not really sure. But then he told me that Virginia lost. I was busy this weekend, didn't get to watch all the other games. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I guess Michigan State should be number one. But then when you go look deeper at it, I think they got it right. I think they got the rankings right. That Virginia should still be number one over Michigan State.
Even after Michigan State beats Purdue and then Virginia off a Virginia Tech loss, that's an unranked team.
Right. But see, this is the thing, is that everybody is taking into account what's most fresh in their mind. That's kind of a thing of human nature. You're going to do the thing that's most fresh in your mind. And so you're like, okay, Michigan State beats the number 3 Purdue team, and Virginia loses to an unranked Virginia Tech team. How is Michigan State not number one? Well, you have to look at the rest of the league, the rest of their schedule. You can't just look at this one game. That's not how you're going to get the rankings. That's not how they build the rankings. They have some crazy formula to get all these rankings. And I don't think you have to go too deep into it to realize that Virginia is rightfully the number one team.
I mean, you're going to have to break this down for me, Joe. I'm still not on board. I understand what you're saying. To me, MSU is still number one.
All right. Well, I got some stuff.
All right, let's hear it.
So first of all, Virginia plays in the ACC conference, which, granted, the media and ESPN and all that take the ACC so seriously, always saying they're the best conference in college basketball.
I mean, it has a reputation.
Right. And so you already take that into account just by somewhat media bias. But they are playing at a higher level of competition. If you look up and down the ACC, it is a lot stronger than the Big Ten this year. Like we've talked about it before, the Big Ten only has about maybe the top 4 teams: Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. Those are about the best teams. The ACC is filled. They've had all these teams with become ranked throughout the season. There's Virginia, you got Duke, North Carolina. Miami was ranked early in the season. They've kind of fallen off. But Virginia's strength of schedule in general is just a lot stronger than Michigan State. So Virginia loses. their losses are West Virginia, who was ranked for a long time, and I think they're still they're in the bottom half. They've fallen off a little bit, but West Virginia was one of the top teams early on in the season, and then they've lost to Virginia Tech just recently. And Virginia Tech is they're not something to take for granted because they're a team that's been to the tournament before. They're in that ACC conference with Virginia, and their record is still pretty good for a team that's unranked. So you got to take that into account, and it's a rivalry game. So Virginia Tech is always going to play a little bit better in that.
And it was at Virginia Tech.
Right. So they only have 2 losses on the season to begin with. Michigan State, they lost to Duke early. We think because Michigan State wasn't really ready for that kind of thing, and Duke's a little bit more of they have Grayson Allen to lead their team, which he did in that game.
They had more
single-handedly.
They had more people coming back. The system was kind of set in place opposed to MSU.
Yeah, MSU being a young team.
Yep.
So they lost to Duke. The biggest one, too, was Ohio State. Michigan State losing to Ohio State pretty badly. And we didn't know how strong Ohio State was at the time. So you kind of take that into account a little bit. But now that they're ranked, okay, they lost to a really good Ohio State team who has beat a lot of other good teams. And then they lost to Michigan. So that's kind of a rough loss as well because it was Michigan's kind of coming out. So, like, all these teams are coming out against Michigan State and kind of upsetting them and getting their recognition, and that's how they're getting ranked. The only good thing, I guess, is that Michigan State, all these losses are ranked teams, but Virginia still only has 2 losses. But when you look at the wins, I think that this tells a little bit more. So Virginia's notable wins that I kind of wrote down, they beat North Carolina early in the season when they were ranked. North Carolina was ranked number 12. Then they blew out Clemson, who is the number 11 team. At the time, they were number 18, but now they've moved up. So it's a really strong Clemson team. And they beat that number 4 Duke team that Michigan State lost to. A couple other wins against unranked. VCU, always a good program. So you kind of take that into account that that's a pretty good win. Syracuse, another good program. And they beat Rhode Island pretty handily, who is another ranked opponent that you don't even expect. Like, nobody realizes that Rhode Island is in the top 25, I'm sure. Michigan State, however, their notable wins, they beat North Carolina early on in the season. North Carolina was 9th at the time, mostly due to last year. And early on in this season, North Carolina has struggled. They've been a little bit up and down. And then I don't even know if this is even a notable win, but they beat Notre Dame, who was number 5 at the time. That was definitely because of last season. Now they're nowhere to be seen. They're almost last in the ACC, I believe. And now they just beat Purdue. So if you take into account the teams that they've beaten, Virginia takes the cake on that, I believe. And the biggest thing, too, is when they win, Michigan State does not look as good as Virginia. So when you look at the scores, Virginia, when they win against opponents that they're supposed to beat, do it handily. Michigan State, yes, they've had a couple 50-point wins against very, very low opponents. But Michigan State has so many of those issues with, we talk about every week, the turnover thing. That's not very pretty. And they've had a lot of close games where teams will stay with them. They've had the Rutgers game where they stayed close and Michigan State looked like they might lose that game. They might drop that game. There's been plenty of those kind of games. The only thing about Virginia that they've had is they're close. Their losses have been close. When they lost to West Virginia, it was only by 7. Virginia Tech was 1. And so even in the games that they've lost, they look good still. And usually when Michigan State's been losing, they just look all out of sorts. Like Ohio State, they got beat up and just, it looked bad. Bates Diop destroyed them. And like I said, you take into account Virginia Tech was a rivalry game. And I mean, they're 18-7. They're a good team. They're a good, solid team. And they're playing in one of the best conferences in college basketball. So when you look at it and try to be as non-biased as you can for living in Michigan, I think you have to give Virginia their dues. They haven't been number 1 since, I believe it was 1982 was the last time. And I like Virginia. I pick them in the tournament a lot. I picked them last year to win it all, actually. I'll be honest. But I think they deserve number one, and Michigan State is going to be just outside looking in.
You bring up some really good points, Joe. I'm not going to deny that. And I'm not going to sit here and defend Michigan State because I think I do agree with your sentiment here that Virginia just has a better layout, a better season so far.
They've looked cleaner.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. What does Michigan State have to do to finish off the season to overtake Virginia? Or is it Virginia in the driver's seat? They control their own destiny.
I actually don't think that there's a way that Michigan State can get number one.
Unless Virginia really struggles down the stretch.
Yeah, and even if Virginia struggles down the stretch, I don't know who, depending on who's below Michigan State. I know Villanova is down there, and I don't know what the rest of Virginia or the Villanova's schedule looks like. Because if Villanova plays a couple more ranked opponents, or even maybe one ranked opponent, then they might be able to take over Michigan State. Michigan State just played their toughest game just now. The rest of their schedule, they play Penn State, I know, and it's not that strong of a schedule. So I don't think there's even a way they get number one unless the teams around them struggle.
I mean, here's the upcoming schedule for Virginia. Their next game coming up, they play at home to Georgia Tech. So I mean, if you lose one of these games, you have the opportunity of falling, and Michigan State taking advantage of. But so they play Georgia Tech at home, then they go on the road to play Pitt, who's 8-19, and then really UVA's toughest challenge is Louisville, who they have to go on the road to play, who's 18-8. I think that's a game you have to circle as a potential upset.
Yeah.
Because that'll be a rowdy crowd.
Right.
And Louisville is no slouch. That's a team that can beat you. And then they finish off the season against Notre Dame, who's also no slouch. They're 15-11. They've had a solid season, not the greatest, but it's not a bad basketball team.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If they lose one of those, they definitely drop. And Michigan State doesn't have any way to overtake them with the rest of their schedule as well. That's why I said you'd have to look at, depending on what Villanova's schedule looks like for the rest of the season, if they get one more ranked opponent, they could even kind of leapfrog over Michigan State. But Michigan State should be right where they want to be, though. They bidding for that one of those number one seeds in the tournament. And hopefully, I mean, I guess it too depends on the Big Ten tournament as well. But this will give them a lot of confidence moving forward. And I think that they're in the right place now, hopefully. Especially if they've gotten this turnover issue solved like we saw against Purdue. If they can keep that up, they will be a very dangerous team.
Definitely, and that's the one thing that might hold them back. Now, switching gears here, Joe, let's talk about some other teams here in the Big Ten. Michigan beat up on Wisconsin, 83-72. I mean, Michigan seems like they're starting to get riled up and ready to go for that tournament play.
Yeah, I hope so. Like we've been talking about the whole season, I think Michigan could be one of those dark horse teams that could make a deeper run. And they had some hot shooting against Wisconsin. The first half was incredible. Michigan ended up at 9 of 20 from the 3-point line, and it was just it's a great game. Michigan has a big game though coming up on Sunday.
They have a big close to the season.
Yeah, they're gonna get to play Ohio State, and this is where they can really prove themselves. It'll be their last test before the Big Ten tournament.
I wouldn't say it's their last test here. I'm gonna break it down for you here, Joe.
All right.
Tonight's not a test. They have Iowa at home. That should be a W if you're going to be a team that really is going to make a move here in the tournament. Then, like you said, Ohio State, that is a big test. They had to play Ohio State, number 8, at home. Then, right after that, they go on the road to play Penn State, 18-9. That's a team that's going to give you some trouble. And then they finish off the season again on the road against Maryland. Those are some tough teams. The last 3 games, those are games that Michigan, if they don't bring their best, they could drop.
Yep. But the good thing, too, is that they can move themselves up as well. And I think that's important for Michigan.
It's a double-edged sword.
For Michigan to end the season with some tougher games, whereas, like I was saying, Michigan State just had their toughest games, so they're going to kind of get some more relaxed games, I guess, so to speak. But, yeah, Michigan, last test, one of their, at least their biggest test is going to be Sunday against Ohio State. Looking forward to that game.
Yeah, that one's on CBS. Catch it there. I mean, you got to make sure you're on the TV watching that one. That's going to be a fun matchup. Moving along here, we didn't get to touch too much on the Oakland Grizzlies last week, but I want to bring them up here today. I mean, they beat up on a rival U of D, a big win. I mean, probably a little closer than Comfort. I mean, it was 87-78 at home, but they had some issues. Martez Walker, one of the big three for Oakland, rolled his left ankle. It seemed to be, it was a big time injury, but maybe not a season ender. We got an update today from the Detroit News' own Tony Paul. He's reporting that Martez Walker, due to his left ankle sprain, is out for the remainder of the season. And that is a huge blow to the Grizzlies' tournament hopes.
Yep. I wrote on my list today that Oakland should win out the rest of their games. They'll probably end up at the number 4 seed in the Horizon before the Horizon League tournament. And I even wrote down they still have a chance to be a dark horse in the tournament. With this news that we got today, I think Martez Walker's season is over. And I think Oakland Golden Grizzlies season is over because he's so important to this team. We talk about it all the time. The big three for Oakland could carry them to the tournament, to the big dance. And now it's 2. And we haven't really seen anybody step up like we were hoping.
But Joe, it's a dynamic duo. Dynamic duo.
And it doesn't work these days. And in college basketball, you need more depth. You can't just go off of 2. I mean, I couldn't believe they were doing it off of 3, but Kendrick Nunn is such a special player that he can do that. But I think now it's going to be a little bit too hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they can battle out of this, unfortunately, because they have such a good team.
Yeah, and I echo your statements there. I mean, it's a huge blow for the Grizz at the worst possible time. I mean, Oakland was gearing up for the lightest part of their schedule. Like you said, Oakland sits right now at 16-10. They were going to go, they have 5 games remaining. They're going on a 3-game road trip. Starts at Youngstown State, who's 7-20. Then you go to Cleveland State, 7-20. And then you go to IUPUI, who's 8-17. That's an easy, it's road games. But for a road trip, that's not too bad.
Right.
And then you come home to finish out your season against a Green Bay team who has struggled all year long. And Green Bay usually is a pretty good program in the Horizon. They've struggled this year. They're 10-18. And then your only real test is against Milwaukee, who's playing 500 ball, and that's your season finale at home at the Arena. So that's a very winnable game. Yeah, I was thinking Oakland could win out, like you said, and really make a push to the top of the Horizon. If they go 3-2, I think that's a win for them to gear up for the tournament.
And honestly, like I said, with Kendrick Nunn being as good as he is, I could see them finding a way to win out if somebody steps up, like we've been talking about. If somebody can figure it out and become that pseudo third guy and replace Martez Walker, we'll see. But because of their schedule, they might be able to win out. The biggest problem is going to be in that Horizon League tournament, which, of course, they needed to win to be able to make it to the big dance. And I just can't see them beating Wright State or Northern Kentucky at this point.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. We're going to take a break here. We're going to kind of go into some NBA hoops after the break, but I want to make sure to let you guys know to go mobile with ONTV anytime. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube on your mobile device. Connect with ONTV to see what's happening in our studio and see upcoming events. Watch ONTV programs in high definition on demand. ONTV is working to bring Lake Orion to the world. We'll see you right after the break.
Please remember that CFL bulbs, those curly, energy-efficient light bulbs everybody is using to save electricity, shouldn't be thrown away in your trash. Neither should batteries or home medical sharps. You can check with your local community to see where they can be recycled. Some retailers will allow you to bring them in for recycling. You can also order simple kits online that allow you to collect your recyclables and simply mail them away to be properly recycled. This green tip was brought to you by your friends at Waste Management.
Welcome back to the show. It's Views from the Sideline. We've been breaking down a lot of college hoops talk here on the show, and now it's time to transition into everybody's favorite league, the National Basketball Association.
Wow, I feel like you upset a lot of college basketball fans out there.
Hey, I like college basketball, but I mean, I'm a Pistons slappy. I have to be true to the people. We're gonna break down some NBA trade deadline. I said on the show last week I thought it was gonna be a snooze fest. I thought it was all smoke. Nothing was gonna happen. Maybe some minor moves, but
It almost was.
It almost was. But thank you. This is the first time I think I'll ever say, maybe the last time too. Thank you, Cleveland, for making the day exciting.
I'm not going to thank them for anything.
Fair enough. I like the way you do business, Joe. But anyways, the Cavaliers did a remodeling of their roster, to say the least. They brought in Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance Jr., Rodney Hood, and George Hill. They sent out, which I thought was shocking, Isaiah Thomas,
He gone.
Dwayne Wade, Derrick Rose, Jay Crowder, Iman Shumpert, Channing Frye, and they shipped out Cleveland's 2018 first-round pick, not Brooklyn. So they still have the Brooklyn pick, which I thought was a win in itself. Let's break this down, Joe. I mean, what do you make of the new look Cavaliers? Is this a good move?
I mean, it's working so far. They've won their first 2 games with the new look squad.
They look good too.
They look revitalized. It's similar to the Pistons, when Blake Griffin came in and revitalized the team. We'll get to that in a minute. But the Cavaliers looking good right now. We'll see long-term what it will do to the team. But they got a lot younger. That was the biggest thing, I think, that helps them out. They're the oldest team in the league, and now they're a little bit younger with these new guys. Get a little bit more athleticism in there, play a little bit more defense. That was their biggest problem.
And I think it helps them in the long run, too. I mean, you add some young pieces. Let's
Right.
say LeBron does leave.
Right, these are developing pieces.
Jordan Clarkson, I believe, is a restricted free agent. LeBron leaves. You have the ability to contain him in your roster, and he's not a foundational piece, but a building block. Larry Nance Jr., I believe he has 1 year left before he hits restricted free agency. That's a guy to build around too. Rodney Hood, or another restricted free agent. He's a good enough player that you may want in that foundation of that Cleveland roster if LeBron goes. I mean, I think this is a good move all around. I mean, they had to do something drastic to reshape this roster.
Yep, and you have 4 guys that in these 2 games have already immediately impacted this team. Whereas you look at the guys that they shipped out. Derrick Rose wasn't playing. Jay
He
Crowder.
just got bought out.
Jay Crowder, okay, he was playing, but he wasn't doing anything. He wasn't putting up any stats. Channing Frye didn't play.
He may have been the most productive player traded.
He would come in at certain situations and be like that 3-point specialist. I know they like to look to use him more in the playoffs. Iman Shumpert,
Shump hasn't played in months.
He hasn't been Iman Shumpert in years, honestly. Dwayne Wade, it never looked right in Cleveland for him. They didn't know where they wanted to put him. And Isaiah Thomas obviously had a lot of controversy just from talking in the locker room.
Nobody liked him.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the sense I get.
Which is weird because he seems like such a likable guy.
And at first, I mean, you had LeBron saying, "Oh, I can't wait to play with this guy." Isaiah saying, "Oh, we're gonna do big things here in the land soon." And it was all good and dandy until Isaiah got on the court.
Yeah, and the most interesting thing to hear from this, though, is all of these players. You've had Isaiah Thomas come out. You've had Jay Crowder come out and talk about how much better they like playing for their new teams.
I mean,
do you think that's something to do with LeBron James and his leadership?
I think it's taking a shot at it. I think it's definitely taking a shot. I think it's taking a shot at LeBron and D Wade, that buddy-buddy relationship. Because I've heard some rumblings about players being frustrated if, let's say, Jay Crowder missed a defensive assignment. LeBron would get on him. D Wade misses a defensive assignment. All right, no worries, man. You'll get it next time. Like, it's not holding him accountable to what everybody else is. And I think that played a role.
And it's even LeBron James doesn't play no help defense either on that team. So
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know.
LeBron James.
Oh, right. I forgot. Sorry. But you can't just call people out for not playing defense if you're not going to play defense yourself. In my opinion, no matter how good of a player you are, if that's the reason that you're losing games, you got to take it upon yourself if you're the king.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. And there's blame to go around everywhere within that organization, from the top to Dan Gilbert all the way down to those assistant coaches. I mean, it just wasn't handled properly. It's bad for the rest of the league to see how revitalized LeBron James looks just through 2 games. Their first game really playing together on Paul Pierce retirement night, they took it to those Celtics and they just look ready to go.
And one of the bigger things, too, is that J.R. Smith has come back. He's come out of his shell. I don't know what happened. I don't know why he got revitalized, but he's back. He's had some great games.
I think it has to do with D Wade. I don't know. I feel like there's always something there. At the beginning of the season, it was D Wade's going to be the bigger guy and step down and let JR start. And I think that just rubbed JR the wrong way. And now with kind of, it's weird to think that D Wade and Isaiah Thomas, these 2 big blocks that Cleveland brought in the summer, were probably the two biggest mistakes and two biggest issues of this Cavaliers team so far.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I want to break down some key players that actually stay put that we kind of thought wouldn't stay put at the deadline. We broke it down last week too. Lou Williams, he signed a 3-year extension, which was shocking, and really a lot of rumbles were that agents were super upset at this deal because it's really setting the tone for a summer that's not going to be heavy spending for the NBA, and that doesn't look good for people trying to make money off of that. DeAndre Jordan, he was said to be almost on the move to Cleveland until the Laker deal became a reality. He stays put in LAC, and he's more than likely leaving in the summer.
Which I believe I called that he was going to stay because of the way the trade talks had died down so much. I just had a feeling that he wasn't going to get moved.
And then we had Tyreek Evans, who was sat out for a good 2 weeks, thinking he was going to get traded, and he's back.
Yeah, for a good 2 weeks, my fantasy team was hurting a little bit.
Oh, but he's back though. He's doing big things now, right?
He'll get there, hopefully.
I don't think it'll be the same, honestly.
Although, what I've been hearing is that there's a possibility that the Grizzlies buy out his contract, which would be really nice because I think he, especially after this season, the way he's performed, maybe deserves to go to a playoff team.
Well, he is an unrestricted free agent this summer, so
Right, yeah. But I'm saying to give somebody a loaner for the
kind of make a
playoffs.
name for himself.
Right.
Definitely.
Just to build upon his season already.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely a possibility. I mean, we're already seeing Derrick Rose got bought out. Marco Bellinelli, who was supposed to get traded, got bought out. We'll see some more names. Derrick Rose, I want to talk about for a little bit here. What are some teams that maybe will we see Derrick Rose in the NBA next season? I'm gonna say no.
You're thinking no?
I'm thinking no. I think he's made his money.
Now, do you think that's going to be his choice or teams not wanting him? Because I know he's starting to take into account retirement.
I think it's going to be a little bit of both because I think teams that are contenders are not going to want to have to rely on a player who takes leaves of absences in the middle of a season. He's done that now 2 years, once with the Knicks, now once with the Cavaliers, 2 years in a row. That's a contending team does not want to have that on their roster. I think a team like the Sacramento Kings would be open to having Derrick Rose, but I don't think Derrick Rose would want to go. I think he'd rather retire than play for an organization like the Sacramento Kings. So I think it goes with both sides.
Right. I don't know. I keep thinking because I've seen teams like the Warriors or the Spurs talk about Derrick Rose. And
Yeah.
I think that would be a good fit because if he's having some of these maybe mental issues or scared that he's going to get hurt, I mean, I'm not sure if he'd be a good fit anywhere else besides these veteran franchises. Golden State really knows how to run their teams. They seem really inviting to new players. And obviously the Spurs, they turn everybody into gold somehow. No matter if they're no names or not, they still win games. So I think if you put Derrick Rose on a team like that, he could find a way to fit in.
It's possible, yeah. I don't know how much Derrick Rose has left in the tank mentally. Mentally, I don't think he has enough.
Right. No,
left in the
I
tank.
definitely agree with you that it might be a question that we might have seen Derrick Rose for the last time.
Yeah. And there's talks that he might head to Minnesota to finish out the season after he just got bought out from Utah. We'll see if that ends up panning out. The deadline for players to sign with playoff teams is March 2nd. So a couple weeks I believe it's a week after the conclusion of the All-Star break. So we'll find out here rather soon. I want to break down a couple Pistons trades. They made some minor moves. We thought they would be a little bit of buyers in the deadlines, and they did. They made a trade with the Chicago Bulls to acquire Stan Van Gundy favorite Jameer Nelson. The Pistons sent out Willie Reed, who freshly off a 6-game suspension for domestic abuse, and the rights to swap a 2022 second-round pick. So the Bulls will get the better of those picks. And then the Pistons also made a trade with the Memphis Grizzlies. They acquired James Ennis III, a younger small forward. And they sent out Bryce Johnson, part of the Blake Griffin deal, and a 2024 second-round pick. So Stan Van Gundy's just throwing second-round picks like it's candy. He doesn't care.
He knows he doesn't know how to use them.
He might not be here in 2024, Joe.
That's true.
And something I want to talk about here, too, for a second. I understand building for the playoffs and just trying to build more of a hype around this team, but you can't trade these draft picks. You can't. You've traded just at this deadline. You've traded a 2018 first round pick, 1 through 4 protected to the Clippers for Blake Griffin. A 2019 unprotected second-round pick to the Clippers for Blake Griffin. Then you trade that 2022 second-round pick for Jameer Nelson, who's not going to be on the roster next year. Then a 2024 second-round pick unprotected for James Ennis, who's a free agent at the summer, and he likely won't be here because the Pistons can't sign anybody. And I'm not using my mid-level exception on James Ennis III. It's just not happening. I have a beef with Stan Van Gundy when it comes to just trading away draft picks.
And
This team's going to need it.
speaking of second-round draft picks, and I talked about this last week. A good player that I would have loved to see in a Pistons uniform was Elfrid Payton. And I talked to you later in this week about it, that what did the Suns pay for Elfrid Payton?
A second-round pick.
A second-round pick.
Now, that is one player that I would have been okay with, but not James Ennis III. No way are you trading a second-round pick or the right to swap a second-round pick for Jameer Nelson, who looks like he's on the tail end of his career.
Oh, no, he is for
No,
sure.
that dude is thick. I love you, Jameer Nelson, part of the team. Hope you do well, but good for you. Get the money. You're not going to be on the roster next year. And I understand Stan Van Gundy's love for veteran leadership or anything.
Well, I think we needed the veteran leadership, but you're right. We gave
It's
up
sure showing right now.
too much.
Jameer's being a veteran leader, leading us to 0-2, and since he's played. I mean, the Pistons are going nowhere fast. They're 27-29. You're trading away fundamentally pieces of this team. Spencer Dinwiddie was a second-round pick. He's a starter for the Nets. These second-round picks, they take longer to develop. And I'm not sure if Stan doesn't get that or what's going on, but you need to have these, especially for such a high payroll the Pistons have, committing all that money to Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. You need these picks.
Yep, it's like what we talked about. Like, if the Pistons wanted to make moves, it was going to be very difficult to do so because of the assets that we have. And that was the problem, too, that we talked about. The Pistons jumped on these trades. They were like the first team to make deals on the deadline.
Jameer Nelson would have been bought out if he was not traded. That's my opinion.
So,
why are you swapping second-round picks for
some
Jameer
reason,
Nelson?
They got really trigger-happy, and that's why you see at the end of the day of the trade deadline before it goes up, Elfrid Payton's getting sold for nothing, basically. He's a starting point guard in the league, and he is better than a second-round pick, at least. I know you're not super high on him, but for a second-round pick, that's a steal.
Yeah, I would throw a couple second-round picks at Elfrid Payton. Much sooner than throwing a couple at James Ennis and Jameer Nelson.
And Elfrid Payton is exactly what the Pistons needed, in my opinion, like I said.
An actual point guard that can play the position.
Exactly. Especially with Reggie still having his issues, being hurt. But that's exactly what they needed, and they decided to go with Jameer Nelson, which is just a very odd choice.
Don't get me wrong. Jameer's a solid third point guard on a roster. But you're not. I'm not. I don't get the reasoning of trading a second round pick for the man.
Yeah,
I just don't.
And like you said too, like James Ennis has even had a pretty good season overall, but he's gonna be a free agent. There's no way we get him.
And the second round pick is unprotected.
Yeah, there's no way we don't get him back.
Let's just say, what year are we in now? 2018. 6 years from now, the Pistons are probably going to be a train wreck with all the cap situation they're in now, and that could be a high 30 second round pick, which is very valuable in today's NBA because those are unguaranteed draft picks, and you're kind of structuring the deal out. So those are huge. I think that's going to be something that's really going to bite us in the butt when it comes down to it. Now let's jump in. Okay, so the Pistons made some moves at the deadline. They also played some basketball games within the trade deadline and today. The new look Pistons are really struggling right now.
Yep. Yeah, it's really bad. So they go on the 5-game win streak, and now they've lost 3 straight. And, man, it's looking rough. And the first game was a big one because it was Blake Griffin versus the Clippers.
And honestly, the Pistons didn't even play that bad that game.
No, this one wasn't that bad overall. It was a tough loss for Blake, and definitely both teams were fired up. I mean, there's Avery Bradley and Tobias Harris on the other side.
I mean, Avery and Blake went at it a little bit.
Yeah, that was
chippy.
That was nice to see. But man, we saw Lou Williams in this game.
I was hoping we wouldn't. See Lou Will or DeAndre.
We didn't see Lou Williams for a while.
Fourth quarter.
It took him a little while, but we saw him in the fourth quarter, and man, he took over.
And the Pistons combusted too. I mean, they could not get anything. I believe they had maybe 5 points, and we were 7 minutes into the fourth quarter. And This goes back to what we talk about week in and week out, SVG's rotation. I mean, he kept that same lineup out there for a good 5 minutes, 6 minutes without making a change when the team wasn't producing on offense or defense.
Mm-hmm.
And he likes to stick to the plan. He likes to stick to the game plan and not adjust on the fly. And that's something that I hamper SVG when it comes to coaching.
Yep.
Moving on, they played the lowly Hawks, who at the time are the worst team in the NBA. They played at the Hawks. They lost 118 to 115. There was no defensive effort by the Pistons whatsoever.
Yep, and this was the game that James Ennis and Jameer Nelson arrived. And the biggest thing in this that you'll see in this 3-game losing streak, Blake Griffin is really struggling to shoot the ball.
And I think he's shooting too many threes.
Yep, in this game against the Hawks, he was 3 for 10.
Now, I don't want to say this. I don't want to put it in the atmosphere, but I feel like I have to. When he shoots the three as much as he is, and with how unathletic he's looking right now, reminds me a lot of Josh Smith.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of Josh Smith.
don't-
And what happened to that guy?
Okay, all Pistons fans, please turn your headphones off for a second because we don't want to hear Josh Smith in our ears. But, yeah, so the problem here is, like, Blake is taking way too many threes. Like I said, he's 3 for 10 in this Hawks game. If you go back to the Clippers game, he was 1 of 7. He would have been 7 for 11 from the field if he didn't take any threes.
Yeah.
That's really good. But then when you take into account the 1 for 7, it looks really bad. So he's taking way too many threes. I know that Stan is a guy that wants to put confidence in his players and allow them to shoot the ball. And I still think Blake Griffin is a okay 3-point shooter. But when you're shooting this many, you got to attack. Like, he's so good in the paint and so good with a mid-range.
And he draws a lot of contact.
Yeah, I think he needs to stick with that a little bit better. And like you said, Stan with his typical weird lineups.
He went with Jameer Nelson late.
Trying to play all these new guys to get him. Because I think he saw Blake and he immediately asserted Blake in, and it worked out. And the Pistons won all these games. And then James Ennis and Jameer Nelson arrived, and he's like, okay, we got to get these new guys in, even though they haven't had a lot of time with the team. But these are role players. It's harder to build role players into your roster than it is a star like Blake Griffin.
Yeah, definitely. We got to talk about for a second here. Dwayne Dedmon, that step back 3 to sink the Pistons. He was a killer all night long. He finished with 20 points, 13 rebounds, couple blocks, couple steals. The dude was all over the place, and that's why he was such a hot name at the deadline. He was a possibility to be moved, and I think a lot of teams missed out. That guy can play.
Yeah, he's had a good season overall.
Definitely has. He's going to get paid this summer as well. And then we move on to the next game to finish off this losing streak. Fresh off the loss to the Hawks, they go on a back-to-back at home, play the Pelicans without DeMarcus Cousins, and get blown out of their own arena. Lose 118 to 103. Second straight game with absolutely no defensive effort.
Yep.
And one thing I want to bring up, Blake Griffin looks gassed. That guy does not look like himself right now. I'm not sure if it's the heavy minutes or the opportunity Stan Van Gundy is giving him to shoot more on offense. But he doesn't look right. He looks tired. I don't know what to do to fix that. I think you have to wait to the offseason and get Blake in better shape. But the dude just doesn't look right.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been used to being that clear number one guy
Since
on
his
his
rookie
team.
year or something.
And he doesn't have as many pieces around him as he did on the Clippers, in my opinion, that could score the basketball, whereas the Pistons desperately needed scoring from one single guy. But my biggest thing from this game is just Anthony Davis. All right, there we go. All right, moving on. No, but, I mean, Anthony Davis is just a Pistons killer. He averages 30 points against the Pistons, which is his best against any team in the league.
And then a little Pistons trivia for you. I mean, the leading scorer at the Palace of Auburn Hills and the leading scorer of all time at the Pizza Palace, Little Caesars Arena, Anthony Davis. He had 59 at the Palace, 38 last night at Little Caesars. That's the most scored ever in that arena. He is the definition of a Piston killer. Good thing he's in the Western Conference because I do not want to see that dude 4 times a year.
The big problem, too, though, I mean, the whole team shot bad.
They couldn't stop. I think another thing, we talk about this every week, dribble penetration. I mean, Drew Holiday was getting in the lane every single time, and we had our best defender on him in Stanley Johnson. The dribble penetration just opened up the shooting for Anthony Davis, and a dead-eye shooter in Nikola Mirotic who I think maybe would have been a worse matchup than DeMarcus Cousins for the Pistons.
Yeah, most likely. But Blake Griffin, again, 1 of 6 from the 3 from this game. He had 5 turnovers, only 3 assists. Reggie Bullock was 4 of 13. Andre was 4 of 12. And for some reason, can we stop letting Langston Galloway shoot threes as well?
Can we stop playing
I think he
Langston
was
Galloway?
1 of 6. Yeah, I thought that's why we brought James Ennis and Jameer Nelson in this, so we could get Langston Galloway out of here. I liked the move when we got him. It's not worked out. So I think we need to move on from him. And
We paid him a lot of money.
for some reason, we're giving him way too many shots.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Langston Galloway. One more Piston topic before we move into our All-Star predictions. Stan needs to start Luke Kennard. He needs to. You're not getting enough out of Stanley Johnson on the defensive side of the floor to compensate for his poor offensive game. I think Stanley is more equipped for the bench role, and I think starting Luke Kennard and Reggie Bullock will help provide the Pistons a lot more scoring, especially to start off a game and kind of get the juices flowing more than starting Stanley Johnson. I think it will just open the floor more for Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond. You have 2 shooters as of right now, but when Reggie comes back, you have 3 shooters on the perimeter to open up the court.
And I'm a big proponent of having Kennard, like I've said. I wouldn't mind starting him. And if you don't choose to start him, I don't mind sticking with Stanley because of his defense. But we got to get Kennard more minutes.
We have to get him more.
Either way.
Yes, he needs to play. He is your last foundational piece here that you're going to have for a long time.
And every team that's talked about Kennard, he looks like a professional. He doesn't look like he's worried. He's not scared. He's ready for this NBA life. And he's played well in the minutes that he's been given. And I don't know why Stan won't give him more.
And I understand his defense is questionable, but this whole team's defense is questionable at the least. So I don't understand that. But as of right now, the Pistons, with those 3 straight losses, are now 3 games back of the 7 and 8 seed, which are the Miami Heat and the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers have the tiebreaker on the Pistons, so they got to hope the Heat fall off a cliff. The playoffs probably going to have to wait till next season. As of right now with Pistons, they only got 26 games to go, and they're losing to winnable opponents, so it's not looking too good.
Like we said, though, saving grace, maybe Reggie Jackson. I don't think he is, but it might change the dynamic enough.
But I'm not sure 20 games is enough time to do it. That's the only thing.
Right.
Moving on here, Joe and I, we got a plane ticket to L.A. We're going to make some All-Star predictions here.
Wait, when did we get a plane ticket?
Oh, it was in the budget.
I didn't get mine.
One lucky fan is coming with us to the All-Star weekend. Oh, no, but let's break down this NBA All-Star weekend. We got some picks that we want to make. We call this segment, Who You Got?
One of my favorite times of the year, NBA All-Star Weekend.
Now, Joe, I want to start with the Rising Stars Challenge. This is going to be aired Friday at 9 p.m. The format is first and second year players, and there's 2 teams. Team USA, so players that played real college ball and are of United States origin, or Team World. Guys like from Canada, all across the world are going to be on that roster, but of course have to be in their first or second year in the NBA. Roster stand as Team USA has Lonzo Ball. De'Aaron Fox is going to be replacing him. Malcolm Brogdon, who is hurt. There's Jaylen Brown, John Collins, Chris Dunn, who is questionable with his concussion protocol. Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, Donovan Mitchell, Dennis Smith Jr., and Jason Tatum. Team World has Bogdan Bogdanovic of the Sacramento Kings. Then there's Dylan Brooks, Joel Embiid, Buddy Hield, Lauri Markkanen, Jamal Murray, Frank Ntilikina, Domantas Sabonis, Dario Saric, and boy wonder himself, Ben Simmons. Joe, I'm going to let you go first here. Who you got?
Well, after all the injuries, at first I was looking at Team USA and thinking that they had a very balanced team and that they could probably get it done. But after seeing Brogdon get hurt, Chris Dunn get hurt, he's questionable, Lonzo Ball get hurt, I'm going with Team World. I don't know how you can compete. They have an actual all-star on the Rising Stars Challenge. I don't know how they got that done, but they have Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and they just match up better. They have Lauri Markkanen and Embiid. Team USA, their big guys are John Collins, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram. That's their biggest guys. I don't know how you guard Embiid and Markkanen for Team USA. I think the matchup is going to be a big issue.
Who's your MVP?
And you can't guard Ben Simmons either. I think my MVP is going to be Ben Simmons. I don't know. I know you talked about it, and I was debating if I could pick
my thunder.
I was debating if I could pick somebody else. Donovan Mitchell is a close second because he just seems like a gamer. But Ben Simmons, he can stuff the stat sheet, and this is a type of game where you can get every single stat that you want.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I got Team World, and I'm going to throw a score to the people. So if I get this right, I'm playing the lottery. 155 to 149. Give me Team World MVP Ben Simmons. He's upset he's not playing in the big game on Sunday. I think he's going to show it all. We might see a triple-double from Ben Simmons. That's my pick. Moving on, we're going to go with the skills competition. That's going to be the first event during NBA All-Star Saturday night. And that roster, their new format for this competition is big men versus guards. So you got 4 guards and you got 4 big men competing. And the big men will play against other big men up until the final. So it'll be 1 guard against 1 big man. The roster is Spencer Dinwiddie of the Brooklyn Nets, Joel Embiid of the 76ers, and you got Buddy Hield, Al Horford, Lauri Markkanen, Jamal Murray, Lou Williams, and the big penguin himself, Big Dre, Andre Drummond, representing the Pistons in the skills competition. Joe.
Oh, no.
Who you got?
Well, I got Lauri Markkanen.
I like
think
that pick.
that this whole All-Star weekend is all about who wants to try. You see a lot of these guys, especially in the skills competition, you'll get all these guards, but it'll just kind of walk their way through it when these are some of the fastest players in the NBA. So I don't know why they don't try. I don't know what they're scared to lose or whatever. I wish they would just go all out, but they don't. And I think Lauri Markkanen, being a rookie, being a young guy, he's going to be able to really do well in this because he's a good shooter. Andre Drummond is a joke to be in this, I'll be honest. We know how he turned out in the dunk contest as well, so I'm a little nervous for the guy.
He's replacing Kristaps Porzingis, so he wasn't on the original roster, but yeah, he's
right.
a replacement.
And I mean, if you look at like Markkanen, who he has to go against, Horford, I don't see it. I mean, it all depends on if they make the 3-point shots. But I can't see him. I can see him beating Horford, and I can see him beating Andre for sure. Joel Embiid is a little bit of a flyer because he's a bit of a hot dog sometimes. So
You just called Joel Embiid a hot dog?
I mean, yeah, he's a big guy that likes social media, and you know. So I think it's gonna be Markkanen and Dinwiddie in the final.
Joel Embiid hot dog confirmed. New T-shirt alert coming at you, courtesy of Views from the Sideline. Let me break it down for you, real simple for the people. I'm a Pistons fan. Andre Drummond's a Piston. I'm rocking with Big Dre. Give him the W. I think he's gonna avenge his loss in the dunk contest, and he's gonna hit his first 3 of the night. It's not gonna be a struggle for him. Moving on, I want to get to this 3-point contest real fast. We got Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Wayne Ellington, Paul George, Aaron Gordon, Tobias Harris, Kyle Lowry, and Klay Thompson. Joey, who you got?
Klay Thompson.
No further elaboration?
I don't know how you beat the guy. I mean, Eric Gordon, yeah, had a good time last time, but Klay Thompson, we saw him beat Steph Curry before.
And you don't want to pick really those first-time guys. I mean, Eric Gordon, Tobias Harris, those guys probably are going to struggle. Wayne Ellington.
But Klay Thompson, it's going to take him a round to get warmed up, and once he gets going, I don't know how you stop him.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw a curveball here. I'm going with the kid from Grand Rapids. Grew up a Pistons fan.
I almost went with him. Devin
Booker. The dude's a shooter. The dude's gonna be an all-star. I think this might be his coming out party. He might get close to 30 points in the 3-point contest.
He scored 70 points, Chris. I don't know if I think that coming out party already.
No,
happened.
I'm saying coming out party as like the 3-point shootout.
Okay.
Not as a player. No, that dude already had his coming out party. Moving on, we got the dunk contest, which we got Victor Oladipo, Larry Nance Jr., Dennis Smith Jr., and the boy himself, Donovan Mitchell. Joey, it's that time. Who you got?
Well, it's a shame that Aaron Gordon got hurt, so he's not going to be in this.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
I think the final is going to be Donovan Mitchell and Victor Oladipo, and I think the victor is going to be Victor himself.
All right.
Just because he's been there before.
Now, I didn't pick a final, so I'm going to... All right, my final matchup will be Dennis Smith Jr. versus Larry Nance Jr. I'm going with the boy from Akron himself. I'm picking Larry Nance Jr. to be your slam dunk champ. That guy's got a vertical for days. He reminds me a little bit of a Dwight Howard with how high he can jump. We might see some sticker action on the backboard like Dwight Howard brought out back in the day. I'm going upset city. I'm going Larry Nance Jr.
Wow, that's a bad pick.
But he says that now, but next week, guys, when Larry Nance wins it, Joe isn't going to hear it.
It is so hard for these big guys to win the dunk contest because it just doesn't look that pretty. And Larry Nance, I've never seen him do anything creative. Yeah, he's had some posters. Yeah, he's had some athletic dunks. But I can't see him being creative enough to be able to win a dunk contest.
All right, Larry, we're doing it. We gotta shut down Joey.
He's
We
a
gotta shut
power.
him down.
He's a power dunker.
All right, and let's get to the big stage here. Let's get to the big stage. The NBA All-Star Game. Team Steph versus Team LeBron. We've had quite a few injuries for Team LeBron, quite a few replacements. Who you got, Joe?
I got Team Steph. I think on paper, Team LeBron looked a little bit better. I think the DeMarcus Cousins injury is a big injury for the All-Star Game because he's a type of guy that I think would have played well in this. But I'm going to go with Team Steph.
You got an MVP? You're not picking an MVP? What's going on here?
I don't know. I'll
Come
come back.
on.
I'll come back to you on that one.
All right. We'll let him come back to it. All right. I'm going with Team LeBron. I think he drafted by far the best. Yes, he has some injuries. I think he's going to have some good basketball karma come back to him. And I think we're going to see a competitive All-Star game and a little bit lower scoring. I got Team LeBron 123-119. My MVP, third time's a charm. Russell Westbrook. He's going to get his third All-Star Game MVP. The dude wants to win any game he plays.
I'm going to go. Oh, that was my MVP. Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Giannis?
Yeah, because
Did you say Giannis?
hey, it's a slip sometimes. But come on. We saw how he played last year. Like, this guy he's the same way as Russell Westbrook. He wants to be in these games. He wants to put in numbers. And that's what the All-Star Game is all about. It's like I said, if you want it, you'll get it. And Giannis, can put up numbers. He can score. And he just attacks. Like, this is a dunk fest anyway in the All-Star Game. And that's exactly what he loves to do. He loves to try to dunk on people. And he's athletic and long. And I can't see him. It's definitely him or Westbrook, I think. Because they're the guys that always come out and try in the All-Star Game.
I wanted to pick Andre Drummond. I really wanted to pick Andre Drummond. But I knew it wasn't going to happen.
You already picked him for the skills competition, so I
did pick him. Fair enough.
Usually I try to go with the dark horse picks, but you went real deep with the skills and dunk contest.
Larry Nance, baby. We're doing it. We're going to do a little Spitfire quick take here. A little hot take action for the All-Star Game weekend. My hot take, we're actually going to see a competitive All-Star Game. A little bit of defense going to be played in the fourth quarter. That's my hot take. Joe, take it away.
My hot take, and I didn't really think this one out very well. No, I think the All-Star Game is going to be just as bad as it usually is, unfortunately. I think that they did right to try to do these draft teams. I think they should have televised it. I think that would have made it. I think that would have added the competitive level because people would have been upset with where they were drafted.
Good point.
I think the three-point contest might be the most competitive. It might be the most exciting. The dunk contest is interesting with Victor Oladipo being there before, and Donovan Mitchell, I think, has some creative things going. The skills competition never seems to work out. I like the idea, but it just doesn't. People don't try hard enough. So I think the three-point contest might be the most competitive.
All right, and that's going to do it. Episode 7, Views from the Sideline. We're getting to that All-Star break. It was glad for you guys to join us here. We had some good fun breaking down some MSU hoops, breaking down some Oakland Golden Grizzlies, talking some NBA basketball. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining us. We'll see ya.
Bye.